Good evening and thank you for joining us on Sunday Interview. I'm your host, Grevazio Zulu. Now, how well do you know your presidential candidate? It's less than 2 months, 53 days to be precise, before you make a decision on who you want to be Zambia's president for the next 5 years. As a countdown, Sunday Interview will from this week feature presidential candidates taking part in the August 11th polls. Today, my guest is People's Alliance for Change Park President Andyford Banda. Mr. Banda, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Good evening, viewers.
Well, to begin with, you are quite new on the political scene, and people are just getting to learn about your party, People's Alliance for Change, and of course getting to learn about the leaders, including yourself as president. From your own words, who is Andyford Banda?
Andyford Banda is a self-driven person, a person who believes strongly in change, because change is constant. You can't keep the status quo. That's the kind of person I am. I believe in new ideas. I believe in doing a lot of things differently. And the motivation for us to get into this was on the fact that I think the time has come for us as a country, as Zambians, to ensure that, you know, we overturn the fortunes, we change the politics, we change the politicians, and do things differently.
Well, you look pretty young. Are you the youngest candidate in this election?
Of course, I'm the youngest, and I'm proud of that.
By that, I'm asking your age, I guess, by asking that question.
I'm 35 years, actually. Yeah, that's just the tip of a presidential candidate's age. Yeah. So, but I'm not the only one that has been here before. Like, we've got a lot of people that have inspired us. I mean, if you think of people like Patrice Lumumba, the first Prime Minister of Congo, he was 34 when he was Prime Minister. You talk about Thomas Sankara, he was the president of Burkina Faso, he was only 33. So there are a lot of people that have done things at young ages, and have managed countries, have managed resources, have managed businesses, so it doesn't really make a difference. But it's about the vision that someone holds, and that is what is our strength.
You want to be Zambia's president, and I guess people want to learn about what your family background is.
Basically, I was born in Lusaka. I was born in Chawama. I spent part of my livelihood in Tendere. From there, I moved to Kafia Gorge, and then I went to school, Namalundu Secondary School, a bit. Then I went to Kalomo Secondary School. That's where I finished. I come from a family of 9 people, 3 guys and 6 women, you can call them, because they're all women. I'm the 7th in the family, and I've got 2 kids, and yeah, that's basically my family background.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember very well from reading from the media that you're one of those opposition leaders, probably a few, that supported the Grade 12 clause. I want you to tell us about your education background.
Yeah, I did support the Grade 12 clause, but of course, what we wanted was that at councillor level, we wanted to be a transition, because, you know, it was just too sudden, and a lot of people were sidelined from this election because of that clause. So for MPs and for presidents, it was fine to implement it now, but for councillors, would have loved it to be a transition. Basically, I did some accounting at Zikas, and I've worked for a number of companies in the accounting industry, both in Zambia and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you're no longer working anymore?
No, I've got a passion for entrepreneurship. I do small businesses, but I'm still growing my business. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but I'm an entrepreneur. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for over 5 years now.
You shouldn't have this interest about politics, right? Is it something you've just got to learn or got interested in as you grew up, or as a young person?
No, I think it's for me, as on my individual level, this is something that I've had for a long time. Actually, it's something that I've been thinking about maybe for close to 20 years. That okay, one day I'll get to that point. And
that is when you were 15 years, you started thinking politics.
Yeah, something like that.
Started wanting to be a member of parliament.
Not really. Of course, it's been a journey of meditating and thinking what's the best way to contribute to my country and all that kind of thing. I never really wanted to be a member of parliament, not even a councillor.
You just want to be president?
It was my journey. I mean, that's what I thought would be, you know. And I was convinced that, you know, it is not necessarily the way people become president. I mean, to start as a councillor, to be a member of parliament. I mean, if you look at the 6 presidents that we've had, each one has got his own journey. I mean, some people were not members of parliament, they were not councillors, they were not even politicians. So for me, I created my own path. And the reason why I'm here is because I've got a passion for some things that I believe that can change this country. For example, entrepreneurship. I believe that the time has come for this country to ensure that we focus more on empowering people through business skills and giving them opportunities to run their own businesses.
Getting interested is one thing. Probably, is there anybody that inspires you or somebody you look up to and say, as I become president, this is the person I would want to be like? Or
you mean like in Zambia? Or
anywhere around the world, in Zambia?
Oh, basically, I was inspired, okay, on the local level. The person that has really inspired me, or who inspired me, is the late President Manawasa. I think his selfless leadership to this country was something that is recommendable. The other person that inspires me on the local level is Mr. Peter Magande. I think the combination of President Manawasa and Mr. Peter Magande was really a spark that, you know, took this country into some direction that we could look forward to. On the international level, I was inspired by Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. I mean, he was so determined to achieve something for humanity, and when he thought that he couldn't contribute anymore to humanity, he resigned. The other person that inspires me is President Obama. I think other people might have their own opinions, but I believe that he's done his level best, I mean, to save his country.
Let's talk about experience. We're looking at, you've spoken about councillor, and your justification is that really the journeys for all the presidents that have been president of Zambia have been very different. What experience are you bringing to the table? You've never been councillor, you've never been a trade union leader probably, you've never been, you know, these public officers maybe.
Yeah, I think I had a short stint. I'm just giving an example. I worked for Zesco, I mean, on temp as a short stint, and after that I told myself, you know, I'd never want to work for a big company. And I worked for a number of small companies, and the reason was because I was inspired, you know, to work for entrepreneurs, because I believe that entrepreneurship is what is going to change this country. So it is out of those combined experiences locally and abroad that, you know, I bring to the table, and I believe that, you know, some of the ideas that we have on the table in terms of taking the business or small businesses forward are very practical than textbook material.
How long have you been in politics?
Well, I can say I've been in politics for 20 years because it's been in my mind. But actively, I mean, we started working on this project last year in August. We started meeting, and, you know, it was born out of conviction that it was time for us to change things. So actively, I've been around for about almost a year now.
So you've never belonged to any other political party as an active member?
No, I've never belonged to any political party, never.
So you're pretty much learning the ropes?
Well, there's nothing really to learn because, I mean, politics is not what people portray it as. You know, it doesn't mean that you have to belong to a political party to contribute in politics. You know, there are a lot of Zambians out there that have been sidelined because of the notion of you have to be part of a political party to contribute to the nation. So it's not like that. It doesn't really matter, actually. Someone can stand up as long as they've got good ideas, as long as the ideas are practical, they're good to go.
So how do you address the concern, probably, from people that if you get into government today, you got into government probably as president, you have very little understanding of how government operates, and you'll be learning on the job?
I mean, there are a lot of people that have had a lot of massive experiences from different sectors, from the government itself, from, you know, the private sector. They've been given an opportunity to run governments, but they have failed, you know, with all their experiences in their hands. So about leadership, it's about a vision that you have. It's about the ideas you have. Are they practical? You know, you cannot, as a president, you don't run the government alone. You run the government with the people that are there, the permanent secretaries, the directors, and the rest of civil service. I mean, it's there to to help you, I mean, to run government. So it's about bringing your vision, it's about bringing your ideas on the table and making them practical so that they can take the country forward. So experience is just relative.
So what we're talking about here is that you'll be going into government, not really knowing what a government looks like, what a government, how a government runs. You've never worked for a big company, according to yourself. So probably for the 5 years, people will be teaching you. You've never run a political party except now. You've never belonged to one. And so this is a new ball, a new game to you, completely.
Not really a new game.
Not very
I mean, I'm going to emphasize one point here. The point is that what is the vision? That's the bottom line. What vision do we have for the country? That is the bottom line. Is it practical? Is it something that can change people's lives? Is it something that can, change this country? That is the bottom line. And we believe that we have a practical a plan, I mean, to change this country. So it doesn't really matter whether we're part of government or not. There are a lot of people that have not been part of government, they've formed governments, and they've been successful as well. So just like I mentioned, there are people that have been part of government, they've formed government, that have failed. So it's about what you have on the table, not where you're coming from, what were you doing, but what you have on the table. And what we have on the table is the most important thing, more than where we're coming from, what we were doing, which political party we belong to. It doesn't really matter. And the most important part right now, I mean, for this country is to change the politics, because the politics have got a direct effect on how people govern things.
So you want politics to be run like a project?
Not really like not really like a project, but we need to change. We need to, politics might not be a place where people come to, to amass wealth. I mean, to just think about themselves. Politics must be run as a service to the people, as a servant. You're supposed to be a servant. You're not supposed to be the boss. I mean, the people are the boss. The people should not just be the bosses at the time of elections. The people must be the bosses all the time, because these are your employers. These are the people that have given you a job, and that job is for you to take care of their resources and, share the resources equally among your bosses. Now, if you're going to get there, and you've been entrusted by the shareholders of this country, so to say, and then what you're focusing on is to just enjoy yourself, amass wealth, and empower people that, are in your surrounding, then we're losing it. And to be honest, I believe that a lot of politicians have lost it.
So what you're bringing to the table is a vision.
It's a vision, it's a new way of doing things, and one thing for sure is that it's because of the mindset that we have in this country where, you have to retire. Even you, Grevazio, you've been with ZMBC for some time. When you're done with ZMBC, you go and sleep in your bed and say, oh, what next can I do? I think let me join politics so that I can waste the rest of my life. And that is what we need to change. Politics must not be a game where you go to just waste your life. And that is what we have. That's why we have a lot of madalas in politics compared to the youths that have got visions. And
but I just want to correct you. We have a lot of people in politics, not only in Zambia, probably in the United States, that are old, and they've been there for a long time. And then we don't get to call them madalas. But
no. But if you look at,
you've got this belief that only the young ones must be in politics.
No. I'm not saying that only the young ones must be in politics. Understand my point. Politics is not a place where you retire and you start politics. Even people that have been in politics in the United States, they joined politics when they were young. If you look at them that were there, it's because that was their career. I mean, they started when they were 27, they joined politics, and they've been there for some time. It was not a place where they went after they retired. It's not a place where you don't have anything to do. Maybe you're bored at a farm somewhere, in Samba or somewhere, and then you think that, oh, I think now I can join and defect to this political party because I was an MD of this company, or I was a director in this ministry, or something like that. It's supposed to be, we have to take the mantle right now, and we have to move this country forward. And we need to change the culture of politics in this country.
Isn't your view on politics a bit rosy, or others would call it romantic?
What is so rocket science about it?
Idealist?
No. What's so rocket science about it? It's just that we need to create that environment so that people who are resilient can join politics. A lot of people tell me, oh, why are you joining politics? I mean, they're just going to put dirty on your face, you know. Because that's what politics, that's what people think politics is about. It's dirty. You know, we've had people that are close to us, you know, family members who have resisted us to join politics because they think it's a dirty game. Now, we need to clean that. We need to clean that and ensure that, you know, we start looking at politics differently and as a service to the people. It's not a romantic thing. It's just what it is, and it's practical. But for us to change that, we need to remove all the politicians that have dented the politics and bring politicians that are going to clean this image and take this country forward.
So you're going to have a list. This one has dented the image of politics. We need to get them.
No. I mean, even if I issue the list,
hoping people will identify on their own and
of course, I mean, the voters are the ones that are going to retire these people.
And they haven't done that in a long time.
They have no.
You assume?
They have not done that because I think they have not had a proper alternative. And
you are the alternative.
We are the alternative.
Well, okay, I want you to describe yourself. What kind of a person are you? Idealist, practical, radical?
I'm
what kind of leadership?
Practical person. Simple ideas and very practical. And as we go through this interview, I can give you some simple ideas that can change this country, very practical, that can create jobs within a short space of time. You know, we shouldn't be celebrating, you know, 4,000 jobs are being created because of a certain project, and then we are celebrating when we have over 1 million people that do not have jobs. It doesn't make sense. We need to look at the bigger picture. We need to create jobs for over millions of Zambians that do not have jobs. 4,000 is just a drop in the ocean. And some of these jobs that are created, they don't even make people move forward. They don't make people move from point A to point B.
Let's look at your vision. You've started with your vision. I want you to explain your vision for Zambia.
Our vision as the People's Alliance for Change is that we want to change the work culture in the sense that we went to school, or when you finish your primary school, you go to secondary school, after that you go to college and start looking for a job. And that is what is killing us now, because the culture is not there for us, you know, to say that, you know what, I can do something else apart from looking for a job, you know, because of the mindset that we've grown up with. And the problem is leadership, because leadership must be able to guide us, you know, must be able to guide the people to say, this is the way you should go. Now, what we're trying to do here is that we're trying to come up with an entrepreneurship culture where people are able to start businesses, people are able to run their own businesses, people are able to succeed in businesses, you know, that's able to move from point A to point B. But what we have seen is that it's not easy in Zambia to make it as a business. I mean, it's very rough. I mean, for you to leave the office and to say that I'm going to start my own business, you know, you're going to go through a rough time, because one, the government has got no real support base for entrepreneurs. It has got no real support base for small businesses. And that's a vision. What we want is, we want to bring in a real support base for entrepreneurs, for small businesses, so that they can move forward.
Let's have a practical explanation from you, how you intend to create 1 million jobs or 2 million jobs in 5 years.
What we're trying to do here is that, or what we're going to do as a park government, is that we want to spark a chain reaction of, you know, of boosting the buying power in the economy. And that's the only way that these things are going to change. You know, you have to look at it to where you have to create direct jobs and indirect jobs. And when we're talking about creating jobs, we have a program that we want to launch in a number of ways. And give me time to explain how we're going to create jobs. Number one, we've got a joint citizen company program, which is our signature program, because we know that it's going to incorporate the graduates that do not have jobs, the people that clean roads, you know, the cleaners and everyone, the drivers, they'll be able to do that. You know, a lot of people, I mean, a number of people have got jobs. I mean, they work as taxi drivers, they work as bus drivers, but the question we have is that, are those people able to move from point A to point B? And now that's where the JCC comes in. The Joint Citizen Company is a situation where, or it's a program that brings different skills, I mean, from different backgrounds, to create an entity with all the requisite of running a business. For example, if you are going to run a transport business, you bring in drivers, you put accountants there, you put human resource officers there, you put salespeople there. They work together to make sure that, you know, that transport business is going to go forward, you know. And every member of the Joint Citizen Company is a shareholder. as opposed to where you go and get, some empowerment funds and then you start employing people. No, but what we want is that every member of the JCC must be a shareholder. And what's going to happen, to give specific examples.
So where does the JCC get its money from?
Exactly. That's what we're talking about. Now, we need to create not just, these programs, but also opportunities. There are a lot of opportunities across the country, in the private sector and in the government. But these opportunities are run by a few individuals.
You have not explained. I want you to be very practical about this. It's very rhetoric. It's pretty much not so practical when you just say we'll recruit, we'll make them part of this big company.
I haven't finished.
Where does this big company start? Where does it get its resources?
Okay, number one.
How do you get to become a member? And
okay, so we want to restructure the Citizen Economic Empowerment Commission. Because one thing that you need to remember is that no matter how much money that the government is going to give the CEC, first of all, the government has got no capacity to finance a lot of these businesses. That's number one, and that's the bottom line. Two, the government has got no capacity to vet these businesses properly if they can run. Number three, the government has got no capacity to collect the loans that they're going to give out. Now, in a JCC, one of the reasons why these projects have failed, why the Citizen Economic Empowerment has got a lot of, bad debts, is because they did not.
In terms of percentage, in terms of comparison, the dates at CEC are not as bad as you would want to paint them.
The bad dates there, but what I'm trying to put across is they have not structured them in a way that sustains these businesses, because you can empower people who are selling this product, but they do not have business skills to run. So what we're going to do with the JCC is to ensure that the business has got all the skills that are needed to run it, from business management all the way to the down there. But everyone who works there is a shareholder. Now, the question is that where do they get the money? Number one, we need to look for opportunities. We need to provide opportunities. We need to work with the private sector, because if we're going to work as isolated from the private sector, we're not going to move forward. We need to create opportunities in the government and the private sector. I'll give you an example. What happens nowadays is that if you want to, to get a tender or something like that, you have to have money. So people that do not have money, they become poorer. Those that have money, they become richer. So now in a JCC...
Who sets up this JCC? Government?
The restructured Citizen Economic Empowerment. They set up the JCC according to the sectors.
Which is a government, CEC, which is a government institution.
So that is their
government
job.
Sets up
that is their job.
JCC?
Yeah, they set up the JCC to say that in transport, these are the skills that are needed. In agriculture, or if you want to be supplying these products, these are the skills that are needed. So people actually are getting jobs through the JCCs. They are being, placed through the JCCs. And once the JCC is fully set, they also get some bit of training,
I'll interrupt you. Are you picking the already existing ideas and changing their names?
No, we're not picking the already existing ideas.
So if
because what happens today?
The CEC.
No, what happens today? I'll give you an example.
JCC, we're going to restructure CEC and create all these
clusters. The JCC, we're not picking already existing. I'll give you a very practical example. I think you have seen women that clean roads, women that clean drainages. Those are not the owners of that contract. There's one big guy who is employing these women, paying them 1,000 kwacha, 1,500 kwacha, and they're cleaning roads, they're cleaning drainages. But there's nothing rocket science about cleaning roads, cleaning drainages. Now, under the JCC, such a contract is not just going to belong to one big guy. It's going to belong to everyone who is part of that company. Because there's nothing rocket science about cleaning roads. This is what we're talking about. That's the idea we're talking about. So now what happens that when, for example, that company makes, 100,000 at the end of the year, maybe they remove expenses of 50,000. Instead of that money going into one pocket, if there's a profit of 50,000, instead of that money going into one pocket, it goes to every member of the JCC, because everyone is a shareholder. You've got, for example, cleaning companies. You've got a few companies here that own contracts to clean a lot of corporate offices. Now, what's rocket science about cleaning? Nothing. So they set up a cleaning company as a JCC. Every member of that is, Yeah, as a corporation. Every member of the JCC is a shareholder. So instead of all these corporate companies paying one guy benefiting, I mean, from this project of cleaning offices, which has nothing rocket science, it benefits everyone who works in the JCC.
Are we talking cooperatives?
I don't think we'd like to. It's not cooperatives.
I mean, just want to use the word.
No. Oh. This is a JCC which brings different skills together. I mean, from accountants, from salespeople, from all the skills that are needed. And this will be the job of the Student Economic Empowerment Commission, because what we want is that we want to ensure that, you know, the CEC plays more of a role of a venture capitalist as opposed to a role of lending money when they don't have it and chasing for money, which, I mean, they do not have capacity to chase for it, and also vetting people which they don't have. So it's a partnership. And you asked me to say, where will they get the money? I mean, we have to work with the banks. I mean, every bank, if their money is guaranteed, I mean, there's no risk, there's income, they'll give you the money. So under a JCC, there will be a government guaranteed bond, and then there will be opportunities, you know, and we want to bring both the private sector and the government to give opportunities to the JCCs. And we're going to agree with the private sector to say that, you know, these are this is what we're going to do to ensure that those companies operate effectively. So that, I mean, and that's the reason why training is an integral part of the JCC, so that they should not disappoint whoever they have to, I mean, they should not disappoint their customers. And that's what we're talking about. And this is how we're going to create jobs, not just jobs, I mean, where people are cleaning roads, jobs that are going to move people from point A to point B. And then once we do that, if people have got income in their, within them, they've got stable incomes, they're able to do other things. They're able to buy, you know, they're able to, you know, to bank, you know, banks are able to open new branches across, you know, even Tuntembas are able to grow now from Tuntemba to shops, you know, products, I mean, are being sold, so industries are growing, so you're creating jobs indirectly and directly.
So is the JCC the major theme of your manifesto?
It is one of the things that is going to take a lot of jobs off the, I mean, a lot of people off the street.
How many jobs are you promising in a year?
We are looking at 1 million. We are looking at between 1 million and 2 million jobs, direct or indirect. Now, it's not
under which period?
Within the first 5 years, 1 million to 2 million within the first 5 years. Now, the JCC is not the only thing. You know, the problem that we've had as a country is that we have focused more on one thing, like the mining. That's a problem. Now, if we're going to create jobs, we need to think outside the box. We need to think about different areas of how we are going to employ people. So the JCC is here, it's packed. That's another program. Now, we need to look at agriculture.
So let me help you.
Okay.
Give me 5 key priorities for your party.
Like in terms of job creation?
In terms of the manifesto, not job creation necessarily, but in terms of a manifesto.
But everything
I want you to pick out, this is 1, 2, 3, 4.
Everything that we have to do.
Core programs.
Okay, of course, we're talking about, you know, job creation. That's key. And job creation comes in as empowerment and employment, where we have to push small businesses. Number 2, we have to look at agriculture. Number 3, we need to look at the FDIs, foreign direct investment. Number 4, we need to look at the health sector, education, and infrastructure.
You seem to have a very new theory around taxes and tax rebates, where you are extending it to the employees. New employees will pay no tax at some point.
We're just trying to, I mean, to have them to settle, you know, because really it doesn't really make sense to someone is just getting out of college, they get a job, and then they're being taxed. So we help them to settle. Regardless of the salary? Of course we're going
Even if I got a job with...
No, of course it has to go with... It has to go with ceiling...
a tax rebate for...
It has to go with...
For how long?
It has to go with ceilings for about a year. And then after that, you start paying the normal taxes. People are settling, and they're able to do things, they're able to buy things. Indirectly, you still get the tax through, you know, the goods that you're purchasing, you know. You're still getting the tax, but at least you're pushing other industries to move. You get the point? So you're not just focusing one direction, you're focusing different direction, and that's what we are trying to do. That's what we're going to do as a People's Alliance for Change.
For how long will people have this?
Just
rebate?
1 year.
New employee.
Just 1 year.
You don't
Yeah,
pay
and
and
goes from
governments run on taxes. So
no. But you see,
and
there are already people.
Stable,
no, I know the
reliable,
is probably the highest.
tax?
I mean, it competes with the mining tax. I mean, royalties and all that. But you're talking about
is the most reliable.
Yeah, most reliable. Yeah, and you're talking about new employees, not like, oh, you've been working for ever years. Okay, we're going to give you tax breaks for this year. No. You're talking about people that are getting new jobs, not everyone. So which means the base that already exists continues. You're not changing anything. So the point we're trying to drive here is that we're trying to ensure that other industries, they get some attention. People are able to buy things. And in that way, you find that jobs are being created directly and indirectly. In that way, still, you get that tax, through other means. VAT, and through other means.
If you created 1 million jobs in 1 year, you would have no tax from those 1 million people.
No, but obviously you can't create just jobs like poof. We don't want to lie. It has to be gradual, and like we are saying, even if you created those jobs, they're still buying products, where those industries are moving. So that is what we're talking about. That is what we're going to do. But the major issue here is that we cannot just focus on one area and say that, we're going to create jobs in this area, and so we're going to pack it. No, we have to think outside the box.
So tax rebate, I want you to complete that. Tax rebate for new employees, tax rebate for all the new companies.
Not all the new companies. Let me give you an example of, for example, investors. We need to take advantage of everything. We need to take advantage of our environment. Now, Zambia is surrounded by about 200 million people, a population of 200 million people, from our neighbors. And that's the reason why today you have what you call the landlocked country. From the landlocked, but now it's land-linked. So we haven't taken advantage of that. In Ghana, there's what they call the Ghana Free Zone Boards. The Ghana Free Zone Boards is where investors come in they focus 70% of their products for export, and they get tax breaks because of that. They're only supposed to sell 30% within the country and 70% outside the country. Now, the advantages of that is that, first of all, we are going to create jobs because you bring industries, and these industries are able to supply to your, not just your neighboring countries, but even to other countries that need those products and services. Number two, you're bringing in forex. So now you're stabilizing the forex, through these initiatives. Now you must remember that you're giving these people tax breaks, because this tax, you are not earning it, but you're still getting it through pay as you earn. Because it's not like everyone is going to jump there is going to be a new employee. So you're getting through pay as you earn, you're getting through other means, goods and products that are being supplied to those companies, and you're creating more jobs like that. So you need to take advantage of the population that's around us, and this can only happen if there's a committed government that can, create an environment for the for Zambian companies to supply outside the country. In some countries, I've had the privilege to work like in the Congo, where sometimes business might be a bit difficult, but you find that embassies they're trade people. People that the trade people at embassy, they are there to ensure that businesses are protected. Businesses of their countries are thriving in that country. So it needs to be work between the government and the government of that country through the embassy as well. That's how we're going to create jobs. There are a lot of companies here that that are big. Big enough for this country. Insurance companies. But do you know that in some other African countries, insurance is a small bit of of business. But because we have not taken advantage to push those people to go there and do business there, it also creates forex. Because once they are there, our economy is going to grow because of the money that's coming out of the country.
You're emphasizing so much on job creation. I did ask earlier, is this the main message for your campaigns?
It is the main message creation. Because once you create jobs, it means that we're going to sort out over 75% of our problems. Even this industrialization that we're talking about, it can only come if people have got money to buy. Because there's no way you can create an industry without with people who do not have money. Even health services, you know, people have got an option, because we cannot just always be talking about, you know, government health institutions. You know, there are also private health institutions. They also need the support. I mean, they supplement what the government is doing. So when people have got an income, they can have an option to go to these other health centers. When people have got an income, they can have an option to go to better schools, I mean, outside the government schools, you know. So job creation is a key, and it also reduces on the crime, I mean, on what's happening in the streets there. So, and there are a lot of people that are not employed. That's the major crisis. That's the reason why, if you look at our governance structure, you find that, you know, I mean, the current governance structure, successive ones, you find that, I mean, disaster management is under the Vice President's office. I mean, but for us, because we attach so much importance to job creation, empowerment of businesses, we have attached job creation and empowerment of businesses to the Vice President, because we want to ensure that it receives the attention that it needs. And
under your governance structure, disaster management falls under defense?
Yes, it falls under defense. At the end of the day, when there's a disaster, you still have to go to Minister of Defense to ask for a helicopter to transport, I mean, bags of maize, or I mean, to get people out of the floods and all that kind of thing. So why can't it just be under the Ministry of Defense, you know, so that, you know, the Vice President can focus on the major disaster that we have in this country, which is unemployment.
So looking at your governance structure, it still includes 20 deputy ministers. Does that in any way suggest you have intentions of immediately amending the Constitution when you get into power?
Or is that what it says? I know. I think, you know, I think maybe the one you received was before the manifesto you received was the one that was done before the Constitution was amended. No, we're not going to amend the Constitution. We're just going to have about 18 cabinet ministers. That's what we're planning. Yeah. In
other sectors, what is your vision?
We need to look at the agriculture sector.
Talking transport.
Yeah, when we look at the agriculture sector, is that we want to make sure that, you know, farmers have got, I mean, they can crop diversify. Not crop diversify because they have to only feed the Zambian people, like, you know, but they have to crop diversify for the sake of export markets. That's why when we think about, you know, people talking about, you know, let's have a national airline. Really, I mean, it only makes sense if that national airline is going to generate revenue. And it can only generate revenue if we focus more first on the issue of, you know, cargo planes. Because, you know, there's one thing that we need to understand here, is that there are a lot of African countries that are still far behind in terms of agriculture, and they're still far behind in terms of structures. So the cost of living is quite high. Like even just simple things like vegetables. I mean, I used to work in Kinshasa. There was a time that we used to buy cabbage at $15. And that time, I think, if I remember quite well, it was about 80,000 kwacha, 80 kwacha, one cabbage. And yet here in Zambia, it was less than 5 kwacha. So we need to take advantage of such opportunities. But we need to have people who are driven, you know, to go and look for opportunities, find them, and take advantage of them. And then, so when you get such opportunities and then you take them to the farmers, they lima what is needed in certain countries so that they have a readily available market. And then you empower farmers with boreholes, you know, with materials that they need to ensure that, you know, those products, I mean, are able to be produced and exported. We need to think outside the box, because our farmers, most of them are peasant farmers, are very poor people who they just, you know, they do agriculture, they sell the merchandise to the FRIA, and then after they sell the merchandise, and then it's hunger throughout the year. But those are part of Zambia. I mean,
so how do you plan to help them practically?
Practically, of course, we need to find a market for them. You know, like I've mentioned, there are a lot of African countries that are still lagging behind in terms of a lot of structures. You know, agriculture.
It's easy to say we're going to find a market for them. How do you do that? How do you find a market for small-scale farmers?
You know, it's not that they'll have to get their goods.
Government will find the market?
The government will find the market. But what we want is that we want this to be driven by the entrepreneurs themselves. So the entrepreneurs, they buy goods from the farmers and they export it. So the government just creates an environment for this process to to be successful. Because if the government gets involved in everything, then that's when things just stop working. You know, the government already has a number of things that needs to deal with. So what we need to do is that we need to create that environment that makes this thing run on its own. A farmer produces goods, there's a buyer who buys, because that buyer already has a market somewhere else. The government has already created that environment in that place.
So running away from, moving away slowly from the issue of agriculture, let's move to politics, back to politics. I know we started with politics, but I want you to end with politics. How ready are you for this year's election?
Well, we're very ready. I mean, of course, we're a small political party, trying to put a few pieces together, but of course, we are not going to do things the way others have done them. We have to do them different, I mean, to demonstrate. I always say, you know, even these issues of buying regalias, hoods, you know, overalls, work suits, is just an example on how wasteful some political parties are. And that's
Is it because you do not have resources?
No, I mean, it's just a waste of resources.
You do not have, no regalia?
No, we have regalia, of course, we have T-shirts, but, you know, there are things that are not necessary. You know, why should you be buying work suits? I mean, for what?
So who determines what is necessary?
You know, it's just, you know, it's our politics that we're talking about. And I think there's one part that Grevazio we didn't touch, I mean, that I would like, I mean, as we talk about politics, you need to be aware to the fact that the Zambian people have stopped voting because they want a fresh air politics. They want, I mean, new kind of politics. You know, if you look at the numbers themselves, they tell you that. If you look at 2015, you find that only 32% of people voted, and the two big political parties, they shared the other 30%, half, 15%, 15%. So you have 68% people that are not interested in the current politics.
That is because they are not interested in the politics.
They're not interested.
There could be other factors.
No, that is the point.
That election was held in the rainy season.
No, those are just excuses. I mean, if you look
Have you done a research on that?
Yes, I've done a research. I mean, people say that it was a by-election. But, I mean, if you look at 2008, you find that, you know, we had a voter register of 3.9 million people and 1.7 million people voted. Last year we had 5.1 million people on the voter register and 1.6 million voted. I mean, even if it was it raining everywhere, really? I mean, those are just excuses.
How authentic is your research?
Oh my goodness. I mean, you can just, I mean, these figures are there on the ECZ website. I mean,
no, I don't mean the figures on ECZ, on the causes.
It is what it is, because in 2006, I mean, you find that 70% of Zambians were voting. So it's not the culture of Zambians not to vote. It's about the politics. And if you look at the politics that were practiced that time and you compare them to today's politics, they're very different. Those politics of President Sata and President Manawasa, they were so issue-based. But now it's about violence, it's about insults, it's about character assassination and all that kind of thing. What the people of Zambia want to know right now is that how are we going to take the country forward? How are you going to ensure that people are employed? How are you going to put food on people's table? How will they take their children to schools, and how they're going to have quality education? And that's what we need to focus on. If political leaders could understand that people really want issues, you know, they could focus on that. But because they don't understand that, because they've not done their own research, because there's no way you can get 15% and then you should be happy. Because you know what, there's 68% of Zambians that are not satisfied. It's easy for anyone to pick a 20% from there and win the elections. That is what it is, you know. And even these issues of defections, you know, it doesn't change anything. You find that people are moving from one political party to the next because it's an election year. This is the culture that has existed for a long time.
And this is a democratic right that anyone
can
exercise.
At the end of the day, it's got effects on how a political party is going to run affairs.
It still remains a right.
No, it is a right. I mean, you know, we are not going to do things. I mean, we are not going to just go in the drainage because, oh, it's my right to get into the drainage, even if you're going to hurt yourself. We have to do the right things here. You know, I mean, I've read a book by, you know, I mean, by Barack Obama, The Audacity of Hope, where it says, no matter how good a constitution is, so as long as you're going to have bad politicians, it's just like any constitution. So even if you have a good constitution, you need to have good politicians. You need to have politicians with morals, because those people
in this case, Mr. Banda, are you saying you're the only good politician?
I'm not saying I'm the only good politician, no. But what we're just saying is that let's change our politics. Let's bring players that are going to, I mean, to focus on what is urgent. And what is urgent is that we need to make this country stand out. It needs to stand out to the world. I mean, look at Rwanda. They came from genocide. but they stand out more than this country. Why? Why can't we do the same? So we need people in leadership that can focus on changing the fortunes and can focus on, doing things that are supposed to be done to take this country forward.
Would people be justified to call your party a spoiler in this election?
That's
pushing for a rerun.
No.
You form a party in January.
No.
6-7 months down the line,
no.
You are contesting the presidency.
No, it's very wrong to think like that. If you look at the numbers, there's never been an election apart from 2001 when voters were split. If we take, for example, of last year, who was a spoiler in last year's elections? 1.6 million people voted. 3.6 million did not vote. So why is it that whoever is standing cannot convince the other people? It doesn't make sense to call someone a spoiler, unless if someone gets a lot of votes. No, it is. You're
a very new party.
Revolutions have happened in 3 weeks. If you read about the Arab Spring, you find that there's one government which I won't want to mention that fell in 3 weeks. You understand what I mean? It's about time.
You're very confident.
It's about
in 6 months. 6 months. We buy into people's.
Look at this Grevazio. It's because of our mindset. If you look at the time that MMD started the operation in 1990 to the time that they formed government, and that time there was no cell phone, there was no internet, there was no way of other things of doing things. They did form government. When we started in January, when we launched, in January, people were saying, how are we going to get the 1,000 supporters? The constitution requires that, presidential candidate must have 1,000 supporters. Didn't we get the 1,000 supporters so easily that we were the first ones to get them? We even had like 150 to 200 people turning out to validate for us. And when we know that there were even some well-known political figures that were struggling to get these people. And for the record, we were not promising people money to pay them. Okay, you come and validate, we'll pay you an allowance or anything. But because people just believed in our message, we spread our message to them. They came to say, you know what? The time for change has come. This is what we need. So the only job that we have in this election, I can assure you, is that to ensure that our message spreads to as many Zambians as possible. We know that we haven't gone wrong in what we're doing, and people are agreeing with us in masses.
So we all know that on the first day that you were supposed to have filed in your nominations, you failed.
No.
Because your running mate disappeared.
Yes. It was not on the first day, actually. It was on the last. Yeah, our last attempt. It was unfortunate. It was one of those things. Who doesn't face challenges?
No confidence.
No. It wasn't. It wasn't part of.
I think we're not winning. So
in fact, it's just that the media did not report correctly. It was not the last minute. It happened a few days before. But the issue of the running mate is the responsibility of each and every presidential candidate to ensure that they've got the right running mate, because in case of any eventualities, what's going to happen is that person becomes automatically a president. So we were ready as the People's Alliance for Change not to file in if we had not found the right running mate. So we were trying to vet a few people at the last minute. And unfortunately, there was a guy who was there. Mr. Tonga is also a president of another political party, the Third Liberation Movement. He had all his papers in place, he had his tax clearance, and it's like he was just waiting for us. And we said, we share the same vision, and that's how he came on board.
So you picked a running mate on the last day?
No, he was there already. No, he was there. He was there. And he was supposed to run in this year's elections as well. So we share the same values. We've met before. It's not like someone I didn't know. I've met him in a number of times, and we're looking at the best option, and he was the best option.
How many members of parliament are you fielding?
The way we are running this year, this election has really been a money game, where people with money are the ones that, are running the election, and we need to change that. First of all, the cost of nominations was too high, and we had to be realistic with ourselves. We're a new political party. We needed to focus on one thing, and that's why we just filled in the presidents. And for the record, in this year, the current constitution, a person can run as an independent president. So it means that you don't need parliament to run government. You can still run government even if you don't have parliament. And that's why we are focusing our resources on the presidents, and that's what we're doing. And in the next elections, that's when we're going to spread out our wings.
You have no members of parliament?
No, we're not going to. We didn't feel any member of parliament.
You hope to run government with no members of parliament?
It can run. If the constitution can allow an independent president to run. What's so difficult? I mean, you have to have the power to appoint diplomats, you have the power to appoint permanent secretaries, you have the power to even appoint ministers, you know, and all that kind of thing. And, you know, realistically speaking, the president makes all the decisions. I mean, Parliament is there to change laws here and there, but the president makes a decision at the end of the day. So
how realistic is your vision?
it's very realistic.
You want to change the way politics are done, and you stand up and walk alone to Parliament and say, I'm the president, I'm changing the way you think as politicians, and I'm changing people.
No, it's not like you're going to tell them to change. It's the way you're going to run things.
You're going to use other people's members.
No. I mean, you've seen
with their own way of doing things, with
you
their
have
own
our
ideologies, with their own beliefs. So who supports your manifesto?
You've got our government. I mean, you don't really need Parliament to support your manifesto. These are things that
Parliament passes laws. And
yeah, the laws are already there.
And
yeah, the laws are there.
So
the laws are there. The budgets are there. You have our governance structure. The president can still appoint, I mean, his own members of Parliament as ministers. Then you work. I mean, we have to approach. We have to.
I know you're aware of that.
Yes, I'm very much aware.
If your party, if your vision for the party is to put more money on agriculture, and 3/4 of members of Parliament feel you must put more money on energy, it means you cannot drive your vision.
The thing is that we want to ensure that we involve the private sector.
In Parliament?
No. In the way we're going to do things. We have to work with the private sector. We need to put in laws and we need to put in policies that are going to attract private sector to get involved. And we also have to approach things in a bipartisan way. This is how we're going to take this country forward. Because if we're going to say no, because this one belongs to this political party, so I'm not going to agree with him no matter what. And that's what we need to change our mindset.
Mr. Banda, it's been a pleasure having you on the program.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
Well, you've been watching Sunday Interview, and our guest this evening was Mr. Andyford Banda, the President for the People's Alliance for Change. Till next week, sometime. Pleasant viewing.